getting out of the way of the thumbnail. I figure no one really needs to see a close up of the top of my head, which is about all I can fit in whenever I try to get my picture in the thumbnail. So that's why we have the books. I just let it go straight ahead, capture what's behind me. And as my room, this room, it's an office really, um, is full of books. That's what we get. Uh, three shelves behind me and shelf to the side, shelf over here to this side, smaller shelf, and then they're filled next door as well. Um, come from a family of readers, always have. So that's always been a big thing. I actually have books that my dad got for um, Christmas and his birthday when he was a little boy that he would sign. One for my mom too, and actually some from some great uncles of mine. Nice to have them. So I thought I would. I'm here every day. I talk about meditation, breath work, yoga, diet. When my fitness and burpee friends show up, we talk about fitness and burpees. But if anyone pops in today, if you have a question about yoga or meditation or breath work or creativity, establishing a daily routine of some sort, um, any of the things, just go ahead and ask a question. And I can't promise you that I'll have an answer, but we can talk about it and maybe arrive to some sort of, I'm a little reluctant to say answer because it always seems so final. You've arrived at an answer, but we don't really know the level of truth, how far down the rabbit hole um, truth actually goes. That what we think of as true and what we thought of as true previously. Let's think in terms of physics, from classical physics to quantum physics and the changes that have occurred. That at one time we thought nothing was um, smaller than an atom. It was indivisible. Couldn't get any smaller. Now we find subatomic particles and quarks, and beyond that, what appears to be nothingness. And yet, we just can't measure it. So who knows? We have no idea. It always seems weird that we make these definitive statements in science when the whole purpose of science is to prove itself wrong, possibly, if possible. Um, so maybe we won't come to a absolute truth together, but we can explore it and have a conversation. So I will probably talk another 20-ish minutes. And if anyone pops up, I'll go ahead and again say, hey, if you got any questions, maybe guide the conversation in that direction. I've done a deep dive into yoga. I've talked about my entire life really has been, there's been a great joy of practicing yoga. From teaching myself as a kid to taking classes, a long stretch of Bikram yoga and other forms of yoga, and then really getting into the philosophy of yoga, the meditation aspect of yoga, as well as the ethical foundation and the pranayama, which always fascinated me, using the breath to achieve a specific end result. Absolutely amazing. And then to be able to take a coaching certification course in that, and being a certified meditation teacher as well. And then just always trying to learn more so that I can present it better, teach it better, and help people more. It's a whole basis of what I do because it's helped me so much. And people look at me and say, well, your life's an absolute mess, which it is. But I'm no longer opposed to the mess, if that makes sense. I've come to reach a happiness within my messiness of a life. I'm not really interested in self-improvement per se, especially when you reach that point of glimpsing the absence of a self. What self am I to improve? Of course, I haven't said that. There's some things I like being better at, or would like to get better at. Always sounds wrong to say at, to end a sentence with at. I think grammatically, if my mother were still alive, she would have corrected me. But I might be mistaken about that. So, it's a paradox. I sort of live my life as if I'm on this continuous, hey Richard and Lewis, nice to see you guys today. Happy Labor Day, by the way. So, I was talking about being happy to answer any questions on all the stuff I talk about. Yoga, meditation, breath work, and non-duality, any of the crazy stuff that I throw out there continuously, every day. And I was talking about the paradox of self-improvement, that I really don't personally believe in self-improvement because I don't find a solid self in which there is to improve. However, if someone were to look at my life, they would think this guy is living his life as if he's in a constant state of self-improvement, always doing things that seems to be as if I'm on that path of always trying to improve. However, I'm not really. I love exploring things. I love being open-minded. I love trying things. And I like seeing the results. But no result is permanent. I don't reach this level and say, yes, now I have achieved the improvement that I'm searching for. It is what it is, says hello, Richard and Eric. Those Temu hiking shoes are pretty cool. Tested them yesterday on a small hike. 2 weeks or so ago, Lewis got all kinds of great gear arriving, and he had some hiking shoes, and he was going to test them out, which he did, and they seemed to meet up to that test and the small hike that he put him through, which is awesome, as Richard Run Trail says as well. So, back to self-improvement. That's the paradox. Am I trying to improve? Not really. Am I improving? Sort of. That's the whole thing. That's the whole nature of yoga. What's to be measured is an improvement. The purpose of a yoga posture, yoga asana, isn't so much to improve that posture as to sink into the posture, as to relax into the posture. And I've been working with the Yoga Sutras. Yoga Sutras are maybe 2,000 years old, maybe older. And it always begins with now the teaching of yoga. And it goes on, number 2. Sutras are just small little passages, full of significance. Very few words, but they get right to the point. Sutra number 2 is yoga is to still the pattering of consciousness. That means to settle the mind. Maybe not so much settle. The mind's always in motion. But to see that, to settle in the motion, which is a pretty cool place to be when you know everything is moving, including your thoughts. And yet, at the same time, there's this all-abiding stillness. I would suspect that Richard Runs Trails is familiar with that through ultra running. Sometimes in a very long run, when it feels like everything is like giving out, stopping, somehow you still feel yourself taking that one step, one more step, one more step. You don't know why or even how. You're not forcing it. You're not using willpower to get there. Something else has taken over, and you're just in that zone. I would imagine Lewis is familiar with that zone. You're getting those reps in. You don't know where they're coming from. When you see that, you sort of see, that absence of a self that can be improved. There's no separation between the self and the repetition, between the self and the step, between the self and the trail. It's all just flowing, all just one thing. Pretty miraculous place to be. On a side note, Richard says that I use my why to keep going. You see, for me, in my ultra running and yoga, I'm not sure I have a why. And at that point, I simply shrug because, it's just because. There's no ultimate why, because all of that can be taken away. Eventually, even the why, but there's something deeper than that why. There's something deeper than everything. It's that old saying, turtles all the way down. So we never get to that bottom layer turtle who has the answers, who has that ultimate why. Ultimately, I'm not sure there is a why other than Sir Edmund Hillary. Why did he climb Mount Everest? Because it was there. Why do you want 100 miles? Because I do. No reason. I do. It's for whatever reason. I am drawn towards running 100 miles. That seemed to be the only answer I had when people would say, I'm sure Richard has heard this 10,000 times. 100 miles? I don't even like to drive 100 miles. Every ultra runner has heard such a thing. But if someone were to say, why did I run 100 miles? I don't have an answer. Not to see if I could do it. Because there was that plain desire to do it. Who knows? It's a mystery. Getting comfortable with the mystery, to me, is the secret of life. Because it all comes down to, if you keep asking yourself in any form of self-inquiry, why this, why that, why whatever, you never get to a satisfying answer. And if you do, look a little bit deeper. That's the amazing thing. On a side note, I started to say on a side note, and this time truly, I will take the side note and I'm going to ask Richard Run Trails, not even so much ask as say, how about Jim Wellsme? Amazing. And Courtney, amazing. This is what, his fourth attempt at this race, and he nailed it this weekend. And Courtney just being probably the GOAT, male or female. She might actually be the single greatest ultra runner. Definitely right now, but maybe all time. I don't know. Richard says, I just think it next aid station, same as breaking up a workout for me. And then replying to my question, Richard says, yes, just amazing. It's a rare race where I'm rooting for two people like that. Normally, I might say, sure, I wouldn't mind seeing this person win, but I don't have uh, a vested interest in really who's going to win. I'm always happy with whoever wins, but this time they both they both really deserved it, and it was just really heartening to see them both win their races, especially Jim with the difficulty that he's had putting this race together before and setting a course record. I said especially Jim, but now I'm thinking, and especially Courtney, who's just had one hell of a year, winning Western States, winning Hard Rock, and then this weekend, absolutely amazing. So, again, I've been talking and writing quite a bit of yoga being the path of transformation. And yet, if I don't see there being a self that can be proved, what is transformation? And that's the big thing. Transformation happens on its own. Simple. It is what it is. Says since my wife announced a rock and roll marathon for next year, I'm excited to buy some new hokas for it. Any recommendations? I'm going to leave that one for Richard. I'm not a big hoka fan. I did like ultras when I switched sort of from running to race walking and some of my longer stuff, the ultras would wear out almost instantly, disappointingly. They would last a long time for running. I actually still have some that I ran in. But walking, for whatever reason, the fabric in the back would wear out pretty quickly, and you're spending, at the time, they were about 120. I think they're a little bit more. They would just wear out too quick. And mostly when I run mostly in minimal shoes. The only reason I had the Ultras, because they were zero drop. But I prefer, I did my very first 50 miler in a pair of Vibram 5 Fingers. Richard is recommending the Mach 5 for sure, his go-to road shoes. I'm looking forward to seeing how, Lewis, how you're going to structure your training towards the marathon as well, as well as your burpees. And I know you spend time in the weight room as well. We see you doing burpees on your channel, but as you've mentioned quite a few times, you are also, you had a workout first, and then you're doing your burpees, which is pretty amazing considering the burpees that you do. 5 pump, 3 pump, Navy SEALs. So, talking about yoga, as I do often, quite often, and transformation, and then the absence of a self. Transformation just happens. It's not the point of yoga, the 8 limbs of yoga. It starts with the ethical standpoint. It has the breath work. It has the poses, asanas. And then it has that meditation path. And it ends with samadhi or enlightenment or bliss consciousness. The point isn't to get to from point A to point B, point D, to point wherever. The point is to be where you are. And that's when the transformation happens. That's been the amazing thing for me with my commitment to, my deepening commitment to the asana practice, which I'm doing for about 20 minutes now, first thing in the morning, right after I meditate. So right about 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm doing my first asana practice. And then I go out for a walk, and I come back, I have something to eat, I do a little bit of work, and then I have my burpee workout, body weight workout, and then I go out for a walk and run with Mocha and then the dog. And then I have about an hour to an hour and a half yoga session again. And I've been doing some postures that really open up the spine, and so much is held in the spine. I don't know, I believe his name is Sarnak, Dr. Sarnak, who wrote a book on back care. And the reason why people have back problems, not everyone, obviously, but the reason why so many people have overwhelming back issues is because of stored emotions, specifically not practicing forgiveness. And we have this rigidness to our spine that is unforgiving because we're not forgiving. And that when we have this deep emotional release, a vast majority of our backaches go away. I should look that up and make sure I get the name correct. And maybe I'll post a link. I always say that. I'll post a link in my description, and I never do. I always mean to leave my blog or leave information if anyone's interested in doing breath work or meditation. And I think I have once, maybe. What I'm finding in my own experience as I'm really deepening into some of these postures, especially the back bends. By deep, I don't mean that I'm doing what you see some of the big time crazy yogis doing, but pretty deep for me, especially at this point in my life. And I am definitely experiencing some deep emotional release, waves of depression followed by waves of sheer, lack of a better word, joy, bliss, for no specific reason. The best kind of joy is when you're just feeling happy to be alive. Paul from Oregon, thanks for being here, Paul. Like the Taoist fusion of the 5 elements, I'm going to have to defer to you on that as I'm drawing a blank. But I see where you're getting at. And it is that things being stored in the spine, things, emotions, feelings, stored emotions in the body, Paul just said. Yes. And actually, Tai Chi, specifically like the spinal wave, has a big, and that's been, I posted maybe a month or so ago of doing the Qigong wall squats, and I've kept that practice every day, several reps throughout the day. Almost every time I pass by a specific wall, I will do anywhere from 3 to 5 wall squats, moving closer to the wall each time. And you feel that release of energy through the spine. It's actually an amazing practice. Any type of back work to your capability. Never overstretch the back, never overstretch the spine. Work within your comfort zone, but go to that edge. See what's there. It's the same like right now for me, Halasana, which is the plow pose. A difficult pose for me, and it's such a simple pose. And I've been practicing it for decades, but I always stop short of where I should be for lots of reasons. But now I'm working my way to that edge, and I hold there. I hover on the edge. And then I find the next day, one extra breath, and I'm past that edge. Which is the same with burpees. Some days we're flying through right through a PR, hitting those numbers, and we don't know where that came from. Just an amazing session. Some days we crap out at whatever number of reps. What is it that separates those 2 days? It's not purely physical, and it's not purely mental. It's just for whatever reason. I like to think of it as maybe gravity is favoring me today. Thank you, Lewis. He says that I am so damn right. It's always, it's just fun to consider. What is it? What is it that takes us to that edge? And then some days we're right at the edge and we're looking over. And then there are days when we jump past it. When we say, hey, who cares what's on the other side? Because that's where I'm going anyway. Lewis says some days he feels like he weighs 300 pounds and I don't get it. Again, gravity. Some days gravity says, you know what? I've been weighing you down for a long time. Today, how about a little lift? Just a little one. This is what it feels like to fly. And then the next day, it's like, you're grounded again. Don't even think about it. You had that taste. But it's that taste that keeps bringing you back. There's that state of flow. We can't grab it. We can't petition for it because it's grace. The funny thing with grace is it's always unearned, but we receive it. How we receive it, why we receive it, that's back to mystery that we were talking about before. But I think it's funny, in certain non-duality circles, friends of mine always say, meditation doesn't lead to awakening. Yoga and breathwork doesn't lead to awakening. Self-inquiry, that, awakening just happens. Jack Kornfield, who's a Buddhist teacher, agrees with him. He's a meditation teacher. And his answer is enlightenment and awakening is an accident. But meditation makes you accident prone. Hitting a PR is an accident. But showing up every workout makes you accident prone. Getting a perfect muscle up, is an accident. But 1,000 hours of practice makes you accident prone. Paul from Oregon, he's becoming, don't take this wrong, he's becoming very accident prone because he's putting in those thousands of hours of practice. I know Malcolm Gladstone says, in order to achieve mastery, it takes 10,000 hours of practice. And then several people have dismissed it and saying, no, that's not true. But he wasn't trying to be factual with it. What he was trying to say is you need to show up every day and do what needs to be done. And that's where the magic happens. The magic happens every single workout. But sometimes it's demonstrated on those special occasions when gravity says, hey, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to look away for 20 minutes. Not even going to pretend that you're here. I'm just going to look away. You do what you do. When I look back, I'm going to come crashing down hard on you. But for that 20 minutes, it's a free-for-all. Do what you can do. That's when you hit that perfect muscle up. That's when you hit whatever number of reps. That's when you don't feel like you weigh 300 pounds and you feel like you're light and lean as a feather. Just going right into that motion. Gotta love when those days happen. Even more so, though, you gotta love those days when you feel like crap. You gotta love those days when you're struggling to get your chin over the bar, when you're struggling to kick your feet out beneath you and pop back up from the mat. You gotta love those days when you're slogging in a long run and it's 90-some degrees out You got to love the suffering, because that's what you get. You also got to realize that if that's all you get, you're still going to show up, because that's what you do. And there's no reason why. You just do. Absolutely no reason why I do any of the things that I do, why I'm outside at 4:30 in the morning taking a walk. Right now, I'm virtually obsessed with owl conversations. They're outside every couple of days, and they are having a hoot fest, going back and forth. And I can't catch them on my camera, but I can record them. And they're just an amazing sound, absolutely amazing. And I'm out there every morning. I hear them in the distance, and I'm tracking them by sound, trying to pinpoint the exact tree that they're under. Some mornings I do, some mornings I don't. But I get a great walking workout trying to find them. I'm outside. I get that first sunlight hitting my eyes, like I always talk about the importance of that. It is what it is. Says I showed up to the bread aisle yesterday. Some days we do, you know, and some days you have to. You gotta allow yourself those days of breaking tradition and just, you know, if something needs to be eaten, you eat it. I have no tempting foods in my house. I got rid of them all, and my shopping is very frugal. You guys wouldn't believe how much of a mess my life is, in such a happy way for me, that I've just pinpointed where I want to be. And it's just, it's a weird thing. I can't even begin to describe that I've achieved burpee monkness. I've become a burpee monk for the most part, with the exception of Mocha and Misty. That's the extent. Other than that, I'm doing yoga, I'm meditating, I'm doing burpees, I'm meditating, I'm doing burpees, I'm doing yoga. There it is. I'm writing. And I come here and I talk to you. That'll change, as it did before. 5 years ago, I had a fairly decent small business. I was caregiving for my father. Not super social, but more social. When, you know, I used to tell people 20 years ago, I was a social drinker, but I found every reason in the world to be sociable. I was sociable Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. I was sociable in the morning. I was sociable in the afternoons. I was really, really sociable in the evenings. And when drinking stopped, and that's what happened, I didn't quit. Drinking just stopped. My urge to be sociable to that extent sort of stopped as well. Paul from Oregon says, I would think a burpee monk would have some robes or real poofy pants. Mocha will not allow poofy pants in her zone. She puts up with a lot. She put her foot down on the poofy pants. She said, you know, no, sorry. As for robes, you have me considering it now. A burpee robe. A burpee robe would just weigh me down, I think. Although, showing up in front of the camera in my burpee robe and then just flinging it off and then hitting the reps We might be onto something now. Richard says, I think we're gay like in karate. I do have one somewhere, actually. I might be able to do that. I could make an Elvis. For those of you, I know Paul is probably familiar. Elvis, when he would practice Kempo karate in his heavier days, and he would be on stage and he would do his Elvis karate moves, I could do that. Pre-burpee karate moves. I think we're onto something. You know, I've been wondering, how do I get to 1,000 subscribers? And I think we're on the right path to achieving the coveted 1,000 subscribers. Paul says a serious drop crotch pant that tightens around the knee, like yoga jodhpurs. Could be as well. I'm not sure though. All of this is going to take like serious burpee testing to see what would be, aerodynamic. I could be the 80s burpee guy and come out in wraparound shades and parachute pants and a members only jacket. Lewis says that would be cool, like removing the cape and getting the work. I think so too. And you know what? I could do like a James Brown, where I hit that last rep and I collapse to the mat like I'm finished, like I can't get one more rep. And I have friends come out and put the robe over me and I start walking away. And then I toss the robe out, bam, and I knock out 5 more reps. And then I just keep doing that over and over again. Paul, you had mentioned up earlier about hooking up with Max. He is, he's in New Hampshire. That's 4 states away still, but he is on the East Coast. So maybe sometime. That'd be kind of fun. Members only jacket, says Paul. Paul says he does have TCB tatted on my arm here. That's pretty awesome, actually. Taking care of business. Elvis style. No one took care of business like the king took care of business. Don't believe me? Watch even fat Elvis do karate and you will be a believer. If you can't tell, I'm actually an Elvis fan. And you know what? With the lightning bolt on the members only jacket, or with the taking care of business tattoo. I used to be a fan of the it is what it is. Have a great day, gentlemen. Eric, thank you for the live. Thank you, Lewis, again for showing up. I appreciate it. No, the TCB and a flash. The Elvis logo. I used to be a fan of the Sun Sessions Elvis. Lean. The hillbilly Elvis. Rock and roll. I mean, more even before rock and roll, the rockabilly Elvis, those Sun Sessions. But in the past couple years, I've really become a fan of the fat, broken Elvis. Because it's that very brokenness where I really think he would shine. He would shine through that brokenness. Richard said that he is hiking Mount Fuji on a treadmill. What's the incline that you reach on Mount Fuji, Richard? Steep at 15%. Nice. You do you got a big elevation race coming up. So, again, I think we're onto something. Either the Elvis cape and karate, or James Brown style, or the 80s version. I could always do the 90s grunge burpee. If I wasn't afraid of getting something, I don't know why I would be afraid of getting something yanked off YouTube, as if it really matters one way or the other. But I wouldn't mind playing some jazz to my session, or even some classical music, which I probably could do. I think Duncan said that it's classical music is public domain, I think, or it should be easy to find public domain classical music. Yep, Richard has one in Alabama. It goes over the tallest mountain in Alabama. What's the elevation of the tallest mountain in Alabama? You sort of picture Alabama as being somewhat of a flatter state. However, when I DNF'd my first 100 on the C&O Canal, completely flat, which was the reason why I was ready for it. But being completely flat, I went out way too fast. I was doing like averaging 940 miles. Way too fast, especially for your first 100. And about 66 miles in, I ended up dropping. So, but I still felt in good shape, and I felt ready to hit 100. So I thought, you know what? Let's sign up for this race in Ohio, Mohican 100. Thinking Ohio. Is there possibly a state flatter than Ohio? Except for maybe Iowa? Nebraska? Ohio was not flat. It actually had the same elevation gain as Leadville 100, because it had those, sorry, I'm doing hand gestures and I'm off camera. I'm thinking everyone can see what I'm doing. Undulating hills, just up and then down, up and then down. Beat me up, as I had trained for a flat 100, which I DNF'd. And then I think like 2 months later, I went right into Mohican. 2 100s in a row, kicked my ass. So that was my first 2 100 DNFs. Took me one more DNF, and then on my 4th attempt, about 2 weeks after my 50th birthday, and I finally nailed my first buckle. Richard says he thinks about 5K is the tallest in Alabama, North Alabama and Georgia rough area. Yeah, when you hit Alabama, you are at the very tail end of the Appalachian chain. So you're still getting mountainous territory in. Not to say mountains as you're going to hit, let's say, North Carolina Smokies, or, further up the Appalachian chain, or getting in the White Mountains of New Hampshire and Vermont, or the Catachtons in are part of the Appalachian chain, Catoctin Mountain in Maine, or the Rocky Mountains. But you get into, as Richard was saying, North Alabama and Georgia is rough area. You get into that rough up and down. And the eastern trails are a whole different beast. You got rocks, you got roots, you have all kinds of stuff that just seem to jump out of the ground and grab hold of your foot. We were talking about gravity befriending you during burpees and muscle ups and pull ups. The East Coast, all kinds of stuff serving in the aid of gravity to pull you down and plant one on the trail. So, all right, guys, about 45 minutes, and I'm trying to keep my talks right about that 30 minutes, 45-minute length. Appreciate you guys showing up. I appreciate the burpee presentation suggestions. Everything's going to be taken under consideration. Elvis, James Brown, Karate Gi, the everything but the puffy pants. Everything but that. All right. Maybe the puffy pants. We'll see. Richard, you have a great day too, as well. And Paul, have a good day. Thanks for being here, guys. And we'll see you tomorrow morning for some burpees. Take care.